This conference will now be recorded.
So the crude drug is a drug which is not, it is obtained from a natural source and it has not undergone any other process except the collection and the drying. The most important natural sources of drugs are from the higher plant, microbes and animals and marine organisms. Sometimes it is from the a mineral source also, which is an organic and the inorganic in nature. In order to pursue the study of individual drugs, one must adopt some particular sequence of arrangement, and this is referred to as a classification of drugs. So, just when you're studying, you can't just take it off one drug and without knowing it is a rhizome, root, or what it is. So, it is very difficult. When you are writing a biological source, also, you will write a part of a plant which is used. It is very important to classify a drug, so it will be easy for us to study the drugs. So whichever the method you do the classification, it should be simple, it should be easy to use, and it should be free from confusion and the ambiguities. There should not be any confusion or the this one, oh, it should have been done like that. So there should not be the that way. It should be simple and easy to use. And we have classified these crude drugs into six. So alphabetical, morphological, taxonomical, chemotaxonomical, pharmacological, and chemical classification. Apart from that, recently we have started with one more classification, zero taxonomical classification, but it is not of much use. But I can just give you the purview what is a zero chemotaxonomical. But as of now, these are the few classification which is followed in the a few of the official books or the in the textbooks. Few textbooks follows the morphological, few follows the alphabetical, some follows the pharmacological or the chemical. When you go to the pharmacological textbooks, they follow the pharmacological classification. So when you go to the other, probably the pharmacognosy, they follow the morphological. And when you go to the official monographs, they follow the alphabetical. But overall, they are classified into alphabetical, morphological, taxonomical, pharmacological, chemical, and chemotaxonomical classification. Now, let us study here. Whenever we are studying the classification, since it has to be a simple, easy to use, and there should not be any ambiguities or the confusions. Now, whenever we are classifying, it cannot be 100% right, or there will be some confusions, or there will be a few merits and the demerits, which we have to see, or we have to mention them. So whenever I ask you to write the classification, you will write the classification, but the thing is, you will never write the merits and the demerits of the classification. So it has to be done where it is followed. So whenever I say the alphabetical classification, what is the alphabetical classification, where it is followed, how it is followed, then the advantages and the disadvantage has to be written to make the question or the answer complete. So let us go through one by one. Coming to the first one, alphabetical classification. The crude drugs are arranged according to the alphabetic order of their Latin or English names. Usually, if you take many of the medical terms and the botany, they usually do with an alphabetic order. I mean, they will name the drugs in the Latin or sometimes the English names. So based on their Latin or English name, they are arranged in an alphabetical order. Some of the pharmacopoeia and reference books which classify the crude drugs according to the system are Indian Pharmacopoeia, British Pharmacopoeia, British Herbal Pharmacopoeia, United States Pharmacopoeia National Formulary, and British Pharmaceutical Codex, European Pharmacopoeia, Encyclopedia of Common Natural Ingredients used in the drugs and cosmetics. These are the few official books which uses the alphabetical classification. The alphabetical classification is done according to the alphabetic order of their Latin or the English names. So some examples, I know you don't know these name of the drugs, but later when you start studying, at least you should know the order. Whichever the drug you remember later, you study lot of drugs. Whichever the drug you study, you can just for A, acacia, B, benzoin, C, cinchona, D, dill, E. ergot, F. fennel, G. gentian, H. hyoscyamus, I. ipecacuana, J. jalap, kurchi, licorice, probably for H. honey. Like that, we wasaka, whatever you remember, probably the even turmeric for tea, turmeric. So those things you can ginger, not only gentian, whichever you remember, you can always write, but it is according to the alphabetical order A, B, C, D, E. So this is about the alphabetical classification, wherein this is based on the alphabetical order you're classifying. Later, coming into its merits and demerits, it is easy and quick to use. That is a major use of the uh, alphabetical order. You know that if the drug is V, Vasaka, I should go at the end. If it is Acacia, I should come in the first. And H, something is there, honey, in between I should go, or G, ginger, in between. So it is easy for to locate the drugs. There is no repetition of entries and it is devoid of confusion. So Acacia will never come in, it will not get repeated. If it is Syncona, one drug, that's it. So it will not get repeated. But in followed system of this one, definitely it will get entered in the two different categories. So that time it will have a confusions in other system of classification, whereas in morphological, easy, quick, no repetition, and in this system, location and tracing and addition of a drug entries is always easier. So location, tracing, repetition will not be there, devoid of confusion, easy, quick. Only demerit is there is no relationship between the previous and the successive drug entries. So it is not that probably when you study the other classification, you will come to know what is the relation we are talking about. So it is just that it is a male or the female, whatever it is, based on that name, we are just entering in that attendance register. We are not dividing that is a male, it is a female, nothing like that. So probably if I divide male and female, I'll definitely come to know in a fraction of seconds how many males are there, females are there in my class. But no, I'll never come to know until unless somebody says that, yeah, this many are there. So it is very difficult for me to make out based on the names also. It's a male or female. That's what is the in alphabetical order. The relation will I means chemically relation or the probably the pharmacological relation. I'll never understand in case of the morphological. Otherwise, it is easy, quick. There is no repetitions. Easy to locate the drug, trace the drug, and add the drug. So coming to the next classification, it's a little bit a tricky one to understand. The taxonomical classification, we say. The drugs are classified according to the plants or animals from which they are obtained. That is in phyla, division, class, order, families, genus, species, subspecies, etc. So you know now what is a genus and the species. So last class I've explained what is a biological source in that genus, species, and it's a family. So this is all we have learned a little bit in the second PU or the first PU. So these are classified according to the plants and animals from which they are obtained, phyla or the division or the class. So this classification is based on the consideration of natural relationship or phylogeny among plants or animals. The crude drugs of plant origin are classified on the basis of one of the accepted system of botanical classification. Like we might see that to one particular family, the plant which is belong to a particular family, they look alike. Probably they look alike. The content of that will have a same constituents or something like that. If you take a South Indians, they will have a similar color. They will have a height of probably one or two. It is an hybrid or something like different might be there. I'm not telling that there will be always an percentage of outstanding or something like different. But in generally, commonly when you take a Chinese, they look different. As soon as you see them, you can always say that they are Chinese. So in the plants and the animals also, we group according to their probably the morphological and the chemical character. Means we compare the pharmacology, sorry, chemical and the morphological characters together. Like a large number of plant families have certain distinguishing character. that permit crude drugs from these families to be studied at one time. Thus, drugs obtained from plants having a alternate leaves. It would have been very easy to explain on the board. Alternate leaves, opposite leaves means what? If there is a stem, and if they are opposite to each other, they have attached to the stem, then it is called as an opposite. Alternate matlab one is attached, after some centimeters to the opposite side one more leaf is attached, that is called alternate. Cymose flowers. Cymose flowers means, if you have seen the any of aromatic plants, it might be the coriander, fennel, all those, or no, not the coriander, fennel, datura, I don't know. I'll just in the next I'll show you. It'll be a bunch of the, if you have till flowers, if you have seen, it'll have a one bunch of the flower together, that we call it as a cymose flower. And fruits that are berries or capsules, like if you take a batate, like those will have a capsules, means if you just open their capsule, there will be inside the seeds, they are capsules. You know the berries, right? There are different type of berries eat. So these are all we consider, like probably the one example is coriander. Now, when you take a coriander, the coriander, fennel, all this will have a similar type of flowers and similar type of constituents. Means they will have a volatile oil inside them, and their flowers we call it as an umbel. That's why we call them. We will all consider or group them into a family called Umbelliferae. There is a family called one Umbelliferae. We are grouping the plants which are having a similar morphological characters and the chemical characters. Probably the morphological characters will correlate with the chemical characters. Those drugs we are just putting into one family, that is called the Umbelliferae family. So a large number of plant families have a certain distinguishing characteristics. Like that, the Solanaceae one family is there, where all the drugs, like if you have seen the brinjal, have you seen the brinjal? Brinjal plant? Have you seen the brinjal plant?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Where you have seen? You're growing it?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Monisha, you are growing it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you
Yellow
take a
color.
photo of
Yellow.
that and put it in a group
Okay, ma'am.
afterwards?
Sure, ma'am.
Okay. Now, that is a Solanaceae family. If you take a many of a Solanaceae family drugs, we call them as they have a drooping flowers. Means the flowers usually how it will be? It will be just facing towards the sky. But these flowers will be drooping flowers. We call it. They will be seeing the soil. That the flowers we call it as a drooping flowers. Drooping, drooping flowers. So they will just come down, and if you see whatever the fruits it bears, it will always be just hanging down the plant. So these Solanaceae will have a drooping flowers and a group of fruits. Apart from this, it will have a same kind of tropane alkaloids. So these are, we call it as a taxonomical classification. A large number of plant families which have a distinguished characteristics will be classified into or permitted to be grouped under one, which is we call it as a taxon. If you just write distinguishing characteristics, then it can be written. So probably we are considering here taxonomical classification only, not the chemotaxonomical. When it go to the chemotaxonomical, this correlation we are making with the taxonomy, outer structure and the chemically. Here we are just grouping them based on their morphological characteristics. Means a certain drugs will be there where they will morphologically look, probably the drug in Umbelliferae, they will have a similar type of a flowers, similar type of fruits. They bear the similar type of flowers. the way they grow, probably they will be only the shrubs. So these type of groups will be grouped under one group. They are called taxonomical classification. Overall, you can say that based on their natural relationship or the phylogeny, they are classified into one group. Or a large number of plant families will have a certain distinguished characters that can be grouped into one family. That is called a taxonomical classification. Like for example, Hyoscyamus, Datura, Belladonna, and Stramonium. These are all will have a same type of flower, same type of fruits. That's why these are all belong to a one family that is called Solanaceae family. You can see on the slides Hyoscyamus, Datura, Belladonna, and Stramonium. You can see here Hyoscyamus, Datura, Belladonna, and the Stramonium. These will have all will have a same type of flower, same type of fruits, and they're all herbs. They're all shrubs. So this all belong to one family, that is Solanaceae family. So it is they now are considered within members of Solanaceae. So that is called the taxonomical classification. In case of animals, all arthropods are grouped as mammals, fish, or phylogenetic types. This system of classification are criticized for its failure to recognize the organized and unorganized nature of a drug. So, I'll later explain in morphology what is organized and unorganized of the plant. But in the animals, it cannot be. It is just the animals and the fish, and they are vertebrates and invertebrates. Ultimately, we can do it. That's all. At first sight, this classification looks appealing, but many drugs are not entire plants and represent parts of the plants that have been processed systematically. In this class, it looks very good. See, one category of drugs will come under this. They all look alike. Their flowers, their fruits, everything. But it looks very good. Okay, this can be categorized into one group. But many drugs are not entire plants. And we means entire plants in the sense it grows an entire plant, but we don't consider the same part. Probably in Datura, if I consider a capsule, then it comes in other drug a flower. In hyoscyamus, I consider the flower, not the fruit. So that is the one difficulty in this. So not entire plants and represent part of the plants that have been processed systematically. So that is the one drawback of this. That is, we are not considering the entire plant. Yeah, we are grouping an entire plant into a family, but the thing is, here we are considering ultimately when you take a biological source, it is a part of the plant what is being considered, not the whole tree of the any or the plant of a drug. Now, if I see that neem tree, I don't want, but I classify neem tree under one family. But the thing is, neem leaves only I'll take, or neem bark I'll take, or the neem fruit I'll take. So when I say that the biological source, it's a dried kernels, seed kernels of Azadiracta indica. There, I don't want to see the tree. I just want to see that seeds of that. That time, it's slightly you feel it's not appealing or it is not good type of classification. Further, the system fails to take into account the chemical nature of active constituents. You're not, see, in a taxonomical, sorry, I was explaining the chemotaxonomical before. So, taxonomical, we are going to consider only the morphological characteristics of the different plants, So, here it fails into account of a chemical nature. We don't consider the chemical nature at all. Since they have a similarity between the two plants, we are grouping them into one taxonomical group. So here it fails to account for the chemical nature and the therapeutic significance of the drugs. So this is how usually we do it, that class angiosperms and the gymnosperms. In the angiosperms means they produce the flowers, gymnosperms they don't produce the plants. In that there is a subclass that is monocots and the dicots. Dicots will have a two seeds or the two seed leaves, and monocotyledons where it will have a one seed leaf. So this I think monocots and dicots, I think, where if you see the dicots, whenever it is at the sprouts are arising, it'll in between, it'll just splits that dal or anything, it'll come in between. Whereas in a rice, if you see as a whole, it just gives a rise to into a plant that is called one seed leaf. Whereas in the dicotyledon, it is a two seed leaves which gives. So in one more is there superorder. This a group of related plant families classified in the order in which they are thought to have developed their differences between a common ancestor. The ancestor is the same, but it would have got a different characteristic feature that is called as a superorder. There are six superorder called as like there are different families we make it. So usually the names of the superorders end with the ide, Hemamidide, Caryophyllide, like that. So that is of not of much importance in a pharmacognosy. Coming to the order, superorder, after that order, each superorder is further divided into a several orders. These are usually ended with ales. The most important for us is a family. Each order later is divided into families. These are plants with many botanical features in common and is the highest classification normally used. At this level, the similarity between plants is often easily recognizable by the layman. As I said, Ambelliferae, the Ambelliferae family, they usually will have a similar characteristic feature. So I was explaining like Solanaceae, Hyoscyames, all this will have a drooping flower and the drooping fruits, and their margin of a leaf will be serrate, just like a saw. So they will be usually the shrubs. So that is one category, one family they'll categorize. The modern botanical classification assigns a type plant to each family, which has a particular characteristics, which separate this group of plants from others, and name the family after this plant. The number of plant families varies according to the botanist whose classification you follow. Some botanists recognize only 150 or so families, preferring to classify other similar plants as subfamilies. Like if I take one of Cinchona calisaya. So instead of giving a one more plant look alike and slightly different, another name, what I do it, Cinchona calisaya, in that species only I'll give it off. So you see, if there are different thousands of plants. If we have to study, there will be thousands of families then. Instead of going on giving a family for each one, it is always categorized in that only. Cinchona calisaya species is this. So it is always easy for us. Oh, probably slightly different from a Cinchona calisaya, so it can be given like this, like the Tura metal species variety or something like that. They'll give and they will name it, but there will be a slightly difference between the two plants. Otherwise, slightly different two plants, if you give it as a other name of a family and the other botanical source, it just adds on. That's all. A widely accepted system is that devised by a Cronquist in 1968, which is only slightly revised today. The names of the families end with the A's. A, C, E, A, E. Umbelliferaceae, Leguminosae, Rutaceae. That's how it ends. So, which whenever you are writing a family, it should end with the A's. A, C, E, A. Rutaceae, R-U-T-A, C, E, A, E. Coming to the subfamily, the family may be further divided into number of subfamilies which group together plant within the family that have a significant botanical differences. So usually we don't follow this in pharmacognosy. We majorly look into the family. So the family I've explained in detail, I believe. So the plants which will have a similar characteristics will be grouped into one family. I've explained about the Solanaceae family and Ambelliferae family. I think the family is clear. The subfamily is very important. It is in taxonomical. You can see one example of Linnaeus, Swedish biologist. Linnaeus is the one which you gave a this genus species one. You can see this division: class, subclass, order, suborder, and the family. The family is the one which is very important to us. Here you can see the labiate. This is what is important to us, labiate. We don't consider the subfamily or tribe anything. And one more thing which is very important to us is, I'll take a different color of the pen. Um, where to select the color, I don't know. So the genus is Mentha. This is very important for us. A species, you can see it is a Piperata. So here the genus is a Mentha, species is a Piperata, and you can see the third name is a Linnaeus. Linnaeus is the name of the scientist. Sometimes we go slightly, if there is an plant, Mentha piperata Linnaeus, that is called peppermint. Peppermint is nothing but your pudina. Now, in pudina only, sometimes if you see, it will have a smaller leaves. Sometimes if you see, it will have a bigger leaves. So, but those two are different, but they are mentha piperata. So I can't give a mentha piperata, a mentha acuminata, or something else. I cannot give. I cannot name, but it is almost the chemical constituents are same. Morphologically, it is same. Slightly it differs in the size. So what they do it when it slightly differs with the size. Mentha piperata variety is officinalis. It is almost same. So what we make it? We make it, give it as a variety which call it as an officinalis. So Sole is again the scientist name. So Linnaeus is also a scientist name. Always the scientist name should start with a capital letter. Linnaeus, you can see the L capital. Sole is also again the S is capital. And you can see in the genus here, this is a genus, Mentha, M is capital, whereas the species P here, it always should be of a smaller letter, Piperata. So smaller letter. Genus, species. Genus, species will give the botanical name. It is not a biological source or the botanical source. So it is a botanical name. Botanical name is this, the whole thing. Sorry, here till here is the botanical name. So here this also we call it as a botanical name of the plant. That is a variety officinalis. Mentha piperata variety is officinalis. So that is that usually of white peppermint, it seems. Mentha piperata variety vulgaris, it will be of a black peppermint. Something like that, slightly varying color, size. So they started giving with a variety. So this is one more classification. Family Leguminosae, genus Glycyrrhiza. The Glycyrrhiza glabra is one. So we don't want the phylum division, all those, but we should know that dicotyledons, it's okay. But Leguminosae is a family which is very important to us. Glycyrrhiza, so it's a botanical name. The Glycyrrhiza glabra. This is a genus. This is a genus, and this is a species, and this is a family. So these three are very important to us. So this is about the taxonomical classification, where we classify the drugs based on their distinguishing characters. What might be their merits and demerits? It is easy to identify a drug, means a similar kind of a drugs when it is done grouped into this, and it is always the drugs are, they definitely, any drug will have a biological source or the botanical name. So if you start classifying, like many of books, they classify under the taxonomical classification. Like now for acacia, there its botanical name will be there. Like honey, its botanical name will be there. Instead of classifying honey as a honey, it will be classified into based on its botanical name, that is genus and the species. Like in coriander, coriander sativum, it will be named as an coriander sativum, and wherever, however it starts, accordingly, it's based on its family. If you take a big books or the big author books, they are always, they write it in based on the taxonomical classification. Like it'll be first one group will come first, probably the Amaranthacea, that is A, and the B, one more family, whatever it comes, Burseraceae. So whichever the drugs comes under the family Amaranthacea, the drugs will be there. It might be, it is just the any drug which belongs to that family will be categorized into Amaranthacea, and it is just they will study systematically. And Burseraceae family, it will be that family drugs will be studied, whatever it might contain, alkaloid, glycoside, it might be of a variety of uses, a variety of chemical constituents, but under that family, since it is coming, it is studied. So the side effects, disadvantages is, so there is no correlation between the chemical constituents and the taxonomical characters. It is just classified. We will never, and we will never come to the pharmacological uses of drugs in the taxonomical classification. So that is a demerits of that. And the merit is, it is always easy to group under the one classification, and it is easy to identify then that it belongs to this family, and it is easy to identify the botanical name of a plant is a merit and the demerit. Coming to the morphological classification, the crude drugs are grouped according to the part of a plant or animal represented into organized and unorganized. That is the easiest classification what we have, morphological classification. And since based on its part of a plant, means which part of a plant you're using it, like it's mango, it's a fruits. We are not bothered about the tree or the bark or the roots and the rhizomes. When you take a ginger, it is a rhizome. So, based on the part of a plant used, it is classified. Either it is a seed or the root or the rhizome or the leaves. So, here what happens, it is categorized into two, that is organized and unorganized drugs. The organized drugs are divided into parts of the plants like leaves, flowers, fruits, seeds, etc. Whereas in case of unorganized drugs, these are dried latex, gums, extracts. So later in the slides, I'll explain you what is organized and unorganized. As of now, you just look into this. These are the type of a morphological classification. It's based on the grouping of a plant, part of a plant used, or the animal. The drugs obtained from the direct part of a plant and containing a cellular tissues are called as an organized drugs. Example, rhizomes, barks, leaves, entire fruits, or anything like that. Means they have a direct part of a plant and they have a cellular tissues. Means all the cells are there. Whereas in case of unorganized drugs, these are prepared from plants by some intermediate physical process, means they are not part of a plant like a leaf, root, hairs, fibers, or the bark. These are the part of a plant. But unorganized, these are not part of a plant. These are obtained by doing an incision or drying or extraction with a solvent and not containing any cellular plant tissues. So when you take that incision material, when it oozes out, it doesn't contain any tissues or the cells. That's why it is called as unorganized. Organized will be just organized into a one particular manner. So cells can be organized into a particular manner, whereas unorganized, there is nothing to be organized to organize. That is why it is called as an unorganized. There is nothing to be organized means they are not containing any cells or the tissues. For example, aloe juice, opium latex. I know you don't know opium latex. Latex is a one, like if you take a raw papaya, if you make an incision on that, it will ooze out a milk. That is called the milky exudation is called as a latex. So I know you don't know agar, gambia, gelatin, tragacan, benzoin. I know you know, but until unless I explain, definitely you will not know. Benzoin is dupa, or where when you are doing a puja at your home, you will put something into the coal, or there will be a bigger than the incense sticks. So where you will just touch a mastic, it will just give only the fumes. That is called the benzoin. We in normally we call it as a dupa. So that is a benzoin. That is also an unorganized drug, which is a resin which is obtained from a plant. Resin in the sense, if you many of the plants, when you make an incision, when you cut them, it will ooze out. It might be a gum, or the gum is also unorganized. It will be of a, some gums will be having a good smell, that is also an unorganized. Honey is also unorganized. The wax which is obtained from the honeycomb is also unorganized. Any oils you are extracting using a solvent, they're all unorganized drugs. So these are the few of the examples of unorganized drugs. So you can see this. So I think before coming to this, okay, coming to the organized drugs, in that these are all will come. That is seeds, leaves, barks, woods, root, rhizomes, flowers, fruits, entire drugs. Here in case of a castor oil, I think you know, in the castor, we use only the seeds. There might be, it is a big plant, but we use only the castor. That's why in the morphological classification, we take castor comes under the seed. It is not that only seed will be grown everywhere. It's a plant, but we consider for the pharmacognostical or the chemical constituents are present only in the seeds. That's why the castor seeds. In the leaves, only the senna leaves or the eucalyptus leaves are collected. Means only they have a chemical constituents. Like cinnamon, chekke, what we use, dalchini. That is a only bark. We don't use entire plant of it. So that's why the cinnamon comes under the classification of bark. So wood, quassia or Shrigandha, you can see that is also one. Roots, Rauwolfia and Ipecacuana. Rhizomes, ginger and valerian. And flowers, you can see the clove is a flower bud. One more is a pyrethrum. Fruits, coriander, fennel. We always say the coriander bija, or the it's a seed. It is not a seed, it is comes under a fruit, which you have to remember. Coriander and fennel are the fruits. So here one more classification, entire drugs. In that entire drugs we use overall ephedra. Ephedra is a plant where you use a full plant. Now if you take a coriander now for a usage in at home for culinary purposes to cook, what we do it, we take entire plant of that aerial part of it and we'll cut it and put it in a sambar. So, but to make a sambar powder, we use only the coriander. As a pharmacognostical aspects, when you want to extract the oil from coriander, we take only the coriander. So the coriander seeds, sorry, fruits it comes under. So entire plant, sometimes we use a few of the drugs as an entire plant. One example is ephedra. Oh. So you can see eucalyptus leaves. You can see this is a quassia wood. This is our check or cinnamon bark. This is a Rauwolfia, one I was talking about, Rauwolfia root. This is classified under a root. This is classified under the bark. This is classified under the leaves. This is classified under the wood. Then few examples, like you can see here the rhizome, ginger rhizome. This is one of the fruit. It is comes under the Solanaceae family. I not put a coriander. It is actually the fruit. And see, you can see here. One second. You can see this is the clove flower bud. See, this is a one which is a flower, clove flower, which we don't collect itself. This is the one which is a clove flower bud. If it is in the this form, we collect it and we use it. These flowers, you can see these are the big flowers which has got blossomed. So these flowers we call it as a mother cloves. We don't collect them at all. They are not of use. So only the flower buds like this. You can see these are the flower buds. Only the flower buds are collected in the cloud. Only flower buds contains a volatile oil. Whereas when you take this part, this is called a mother cloud. The mother cloud doesn't contains a volatile oil, and we don't collect. So before it blossoms, when it is in the bud, it has to be collected. So that is one more important thing. So these are all, we call it as a dried latex. So this is a dried latex. I've told you latex means what? In papaya, whatever the white juice arrives, that is called a papain. Dried juice like aloe, dried extracts. There are different agar, everything you will read in detail later. The wax is beeswax or the carnauba wax. Gums like acacia, agar, trachant. Resins asafoetida. I think asafoetida ing, I think. We put it in all sambas when you prepare. Now you know benzoin also. What is benzoin? So these are all comes under a resins as an unorganized drugs. For examples of this, wait a second, I'll show you what is that. Think about it. You can see here. You can see here. This is a gum oozed out from a plant. You can see here also. It's a gum oozed out. Whenever you make a slight incision, you cut with a blade or something like that. So you can see these are the gums oozing out from the plant. See aloe vera, hello, aloe vera, you can see the, when you cut the juice, usually the aloe vera juice is what we get in the market is a different, what we collect it is a different. So here what happens when you cut the base of a leaf, it oozes out the juices. This is a juice with what we collect. It is an unorganized. In these unorganized, these are not part of a plant. When you're making a cutting or you're making incisions, they are oozing out. So these are called unorganized drugs. They don't have a cellular structure. They cannot be identified through the systematic microscopic. It cannot be identified. You can see this papaya. We know, at least we know the papaya. So you make an incision, slight incision with your just a nail. If you make an incision on the raw papaya, it will ooze out like this. This is how it has been collected, papain. It and is the latex. So latex is a milky exudate obtained from the papaya or the opium. So this milky exudate, we call it as in latex. So you can see this is also unorganized drugs. Mm, So few examples here also I've given volatile oil, fixed oil, animal products, and the fossil, which is unorganized. All oils are unorganized. Animal product like beeswax is also unorganized. Last part, I'll just conclude it. I just wanted to tell before going so that you can tell me the next class difference between organized and unorganized. Let me erase. See, this is organized. This, as I've explained, this have a, this is from a plant or animal origin. This is also from a plant, animal, or mineral origin. Major difference is this is direct. This is a part of a plant or animal. These are the product of plant. These are not part of a plant. First thing, unorganized are the not part of a plant. These are the product of a plant and animals. This is the first point. These have a cellular structure. They do not have a defined or the definite cellular structure. This is a second difference. Third one, when it comes to organized, these can be identified morphological and microscopical. Since they have a definite cellular structure, don't write the morphological. It is better to have a microscopically. This organized can be identified microscopically because they have a systematic cell structure. Whereas unorganized, they cannot be identified by the microscopy. They have to be either organoleptic or chemical identification test. It has to be identified. Either organoleptic or means organoleptic means either the order color order taste and chemical test, these unorganized can be identified. Organoleptic is color, order, taste, and very important is chemical test. Whereas the organized, they can be identified through the microscopy. Unorganized cannot be identified through the microscopy. They are identified organoleptic and chemical identification test. Here, our organized examples are the anything, a part of a plant, digitalis leaves, cinchona bark, or anything. Here, example, agar, gelatin, asafoetida, your benzoin, beeswax, all these are the papain, latex. These are all can be given for the unorganized drugs. I think I'll end here. Any doubts? Any doubts?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
You've understood the organized and unorganized? You've understood organized and unorganized?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Yeah, tell me if you have any doubt, please do ask me. I have a doubt that you will understand taxonomical classification. If you have understood, I am very happy. If you have understood organized and unorganized, I'm very happy. Usually it will be asked for the 5 marks or the 2 marks question. Classification definitely it will be there in the question paper. I'll post it. If you have any doubts, you can come back. Now only I'll post the previous class one. Okay? Okay then. Let me
Okay,
know
ma'am.
if you have any doubts next class.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay then. I'll end the class.
Ma'am, we should take the attendance, ma'am.
Yeah, please.
Okay, ma'am. We'll send it in